everyone, it's Grizz. I'm in the garage with the 916 and it's time for me to change the timing belts. Yeah, I've decided to do them myself. I was going to get the old girl booked in and get them done and I have a peace of mind someone else had done it correctly and paid an absolute fortune for it. But everywhere's super busy, so I've decided to tackle it myself. Let me show you the bits and pieces that I've got to get today's job done. Let's have a look. So here we go. Ignore the coolant, that's for a coolant change I'm going to do. I have already done a previous video on that. If you look for my playlist, it's on there. So what do we need for today's job? Well, first and foremost, we need some belts. I ordered these belts as part of a kit. It came with nuts and all the washers as well. Those are for replacing the adjuster wheel nut and washer that sits behind it. So yeah, that is for those there. I'll show you a bit more of the bike in a sec. We've got a timing belt kit, which is made by Gates. I know these are very good, Gates belts. 5192XS is the part number. Let me just double check that on the actual belt itself. Let's have a look. So yeah, here we go. 5192XS, 95 times 17 millimeters. Yeah, the Gates belts are very good, and I know they're good, so I'm pretty confident with using those, and they are definitely a lot cheaper than buying the Ducati belts. I've also bought a cam locking tool as well, and it also came with this socket, which is used on the cams themselves, which you can turn the cams using this. To be quite honest, you don't need to use this because you can do the same by sticking the bike in 6th gear and moving the back wheel to shift those gears around. I'll show you a bit more of that in a sec. So yeah, I think this is pretty essential for locking the cams in place. Obviously you need the belts. You want some Tipex as well, which we're going to use for marking the belt, which will show or to ensure we get the new belts on in the same spacing as such. More will become clear as we go. I've also got a lovely snap-on torque wrench, which a very lovely person at work lent to me. Thank you very, very much, John. John at work, you know who you are. Thank you, mate. This is a lovely piece of kit. It's very flippin' expensive, and I'm very lucky and fortunate to have such good friends. So, right, what have we done? Let me show you what I've done so far. So what have I done so far? Basically, I've stripped the bike right down, taken off the back seat, taken off the petrol tank, removed the spark plugs, removed the engine case covers here, and obviously down here as well, and the one which is in the middle, so you can see all those there. That's that 3 engine covers off. As I say, spark plugs out. I did run into a problem. One of my fuel line connectors, the tip here should look like the black one, and it's snapped off, so I need to get a new one of these. So the bike isn't actually going to go anywhere once I've done this, which is super frustrating. But onwards and upwards, let's get this bike sorted. Let me show you how we first of all start off by lining up these belts and finding top dead center. Okay, so now where is top dead center, I hear you say. Now we've got 4 indicators on this side of where top dead center is. Let's zoom in a little bit. Okay, so top dead center on this lower one. Someone's already helped us and put a bit of yellow paint on there. There is top dead center. There is a indentation on the engine casing to indicate where that is, and on the actual cam wheel itself, again, someone's put some yellow paint on there. There's another indentation on that gear. We need to get those to line up together. The same on the bottom here. There's some yellow paint underneath on the bottom here, and there is the yellow indicator again there, indentation. And on the upper one here, the upper cylinder, we've got indentation with some yellow paint. Same again here, the same again on this one and this one. So now we need to get those all lined up, which we do by basically, as I say, just sticking it in 6th gear, spark plugs out, so we've got no compression. It's easy to turn that back wheel around, turn it the normal rotating way you would until we get all of those indicators lined up. Like so, yeah, so we've got these lined up there and also on the bottom. I'll show you that a bit closer. All right, so now you can see they're all lined up, top and bottom, yeah. And also I'm going to use the locking tool, which is this one. So the locking tool, with the locking tool there is some disadvantages. You can only actually line up this locking tool one at a time. You cannot fit them on both wheels, both cams should I say, at the same time, so you can only lock one at a time. So I'm going to use it to lock it and remove the belt, and I think I'm going to use it so I can basically loosen off the tension and keep these cams in place. Now to actually get this fitted is quite fiddly. You have to again turn the belt so they line up nicely. They're just slightly out at the moment, so in order to do that again, just put it in a little bit and on the top when I got it, and then just nudge the wheel so they line up like so. Right, so that actually wasn't too bad. So that one is on. So now we're going to go on to loosen off this. Oh, I'm going to first of all mark up that belt. Okay, so first of all, putting Tipp-Ex in between those teeth like so. One there, and again lining up there. Same on the bottom. So I've also done the rear belt as well, and I've also put R for rear belt and an indicating arrow, and the same down on this one as well. Can't see it very well. Front and another arrow, so I know where it's all going. I put a tiny bit too much Tipp-Ex on this one here. Terrible. I'll clean that off the wheel before I refit the belt. So yeah, that is our indicator. We've got 4 indicators there of where the belt's going, and all I need to do is count the teeth between each connector on the new belt. But we get those belts off, and then we can start counting the amount of teeth and make sure we get this belt on in the right way it should do. Okay, I did just miss one. There's another top dead center point here, which again, it's got another yellow dot on. I'm going to put a bit of Tipp-Ex on that one, which will allow me to align that first belt. And then when I've got the first belt off, I will also do it to the belt behind it as well, to ensure we've got everything nicely lined up. So then all we need to do is count the amount of teeth from each point on the cam wheels as such. Okay, let's get that done. Okay, so all parts of the belt now marked up, top to the center. I also marked up on this lower pointer with the back point here on the belt, on the top dead center. So I've got Tipp-Ex on all these points, which will enable me to line it all back up. Now I need to loosen off the belt tension. Got the locking tool there in place. I'm going to put this big spanner on the outer nut and then use another one to loosen off the locking nut. So the big one is the adjuster and the inner one is the actual locking nut. Let me actually, what I'm going to do is just use this one first of all, because it's not going to go anywhere. That's fine. Okay, so now we can just get a bit more adjustment on this and loosen this belt off completely. That is quite loose. Can we just pull this belt off now? Let's have a look. Yeah, that's off, easy enough, job done. So we're going to use all these marks now and measure out the other belt. But before I do that, I'm also going to go on and take off the other belt. So again, I fitted the locking tool. Now I'm going to loosen off the tension on the belt by undoing the locking nut. Like so. Okay, we can pull this belt off. I'm going to actually remove the tensioning wheel just to ease removal of this one. This is the old belt, okay, that's the front belt and this is the rear belt. Let's have a closer look at these. These have been on for 2 years. They are Ducati belts and are in very good condition. To be honest, they don't really look like they need replacing. Let's have a little closer look. Okay, so here is the belt. As I say, it's in very good condition. There's no signs of cracking. I've got my little arrow there and front on it to indicate, but yeah, anyway, no signs of cracking on this belt. It's very good condition, and Ducati, you've done a lovely job. At this point also, it would pay to get the replacement belt and just compare it for size, and it's the same width, and also you want to make sure, I could count exactly how many teeth there are, but it's the same size belt as well. So that's all good. So the next step we want to do is to count the teeth in between these fitting points here that we've got marked out on the belt, yeah, and get that all lined up and get the replacement belts marked in the same way so we can get them fitted correctly back on the bike. So let me do that. Right, so that is old and new belts together. New belt on the top, marked up. I've spaced it all out and counted, triple counted and quadruple counted, and have everything nicely, have the marks in the same place. Basically, I had to count each tooth. So counted all the way on the old belt. So like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22. Yeah, 22. And then just do the same on the other belt. So the first big mark, counting from that one, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22. So we've got that same belt, and then I've also, or both belts marked out the same, I also did the same, counted again from this mark here all the way around to this one. Now this is on the front belt. On the rear belt, I wasn't able to get a mark on the bottom, so I'm going to be purely working off of the top markings. Chastise me if you wish, but it's not exactly easy to try and mark that belt down off of this bottom gear. So I'll just ensure that everything stays in top dead center position as it is at the moment. And yeah, with that pulley wheel off as well, it makes life a bit easier getting the belt on that rear one. So I'm going to do the rear one first. Let's get that belt on. So first of all, I want to make sure that I'm getting this nicely in line. What I'm going to do is work from the top down. I think let's get this belt in place. So good job I've got that locking tool in place. Takes a bit of the stress away. So they are all matching up, those, yeah. Make the light's not feeling too much for you. Let's get it around this wheel. And then to get that tensioner wheel back on, okay, I need to take a little bit of that slack over there. This belt needs to come around 1 notch on the bottom. Let's try it with the wheel on first. Right, so first belt is on. It's not exactly easy, I would say, to line them up, but we got there. They are all in the correct position. Basically, you've got to get the belt on the bottom and get tension on the belt from the bottom fixing so that it's nice and tight up to here, and then feed the line back up all the way up here. So yeah, you have to get some tension on it from one side and then line up the other side. But it did take quite a bit of jiggery pokery, but we are there. Right, so you have to excuse me, I've kind of zoomed a little bit ahead. I've just put a little bit of tension on this one, but before I kind of did the final tensioning of the belt, so just, or that first rear belt, I also wanted to get the front one on. So this was quite easy actually in comparison to the rear one. I just first of all made sure these are all in line, and then ran the belt through here, either side of the tensioner. Excuse my lighting, it keeps going lighter and brighter, or darker and brighter, but anyway. And then just basically squeezed it over the final wheel. Okay, so that is nicely in place now, with the marker here on the middle center wheel as such, and this other one, or the other cam ones obviously. So that is all nicely lined up and the belts are on. So now is just tensioning. So belt tensioning, what have you got to do? First of all, obviously we've got that belt in situ. What I have done is replace the locking nut and washer which sits on top of the wheel, which adjusts the pressure. So that is a fresh new locking nut and washer there, and basically to adjust the belt and add more tension to this belt, we turn this nut, the large nut on the inside, which adjusts the tension on the belt. Now, to get the correct tension on this belt, in an ideal world, what we would have is the Ducati belt tensioner tool, and that would make a really nice job of things. But also you can tighten this yourself manually by using a few different techniques. Now, there is a train of thought by using a Allen key, a 5mm Allen key, and you can basically see once this belt is actually on quite loose, even it sits quite naturally. with about a 5mm gap between the top of the casing and the belt. Now what you want to do is put a line on the casing there, so then you can have a guide to how tight you've got the belt. So let's just give that a go, and what we want is 5mm of play in that belt. So what we want to do, let's put it a little bit tight. So what have we got here? We'll say about 5mm. So let's just lock that off there. Okay, so now we want to get 5mm of play in there, roughly. Let's have a look. So we've got, I would say, you can do it on the way down, stroke like this, or even on the way up. I would say that's about 5mm. Another way of checking the belt, let me show you another way. Okay, so another way of checking the belt is actually by twisting the belt, and what we want to get is no more. You need to be able to kind of turn it at a right angle. You don't want to be able to turn it more than that. If you can turn it more, it's too loose, and if you can't achieve that kind of right angle as well, it's probably too tight. So I would say using that as a guide, a 5mm gap either side again on this belt. And there is one more train of thought as well, which is using the actual sound of the belt. So you would kind of play it almost like a guitar string. Can't really hear much, I don't think, on this camera, but you can actually hear a difference between the two. So yeah, I'm going to play with that a bit more, and basically, yeah, you can get a different tone off that belt. So what I'm also going to do now is also show you how to tension your belt using a hertz meter. Let's have a look at that. Okay, so I've just downloaded an app. This is made by Coolsoft. It's an audio frequency counter, and basically we want to be tuning that belt to 110 hertz. At the moment I fancy that belt is just maybe slightly tight, so yeah, I think it needs to be a bit looser. On my gauge of the movement in the belt here, there's not really much movement, and also it's quite stiff to get that 90-degree turning point. So let's actually see how many hertz, when I strum the belt like a guitar string, how many hertz it's going to kick out. We're looking for 110, but I think it's a little bit tighter. Let's have a look. So we want to be strumming the middle of the belt here on the lower part. So that's about 130, so that is a little bit tight, I think. So let's loosen it off a little bit. That's a bit tighter, looser. So that there is a bit better. Let's have a look. Is this easier to turn now? Yeah, that's easier to turn. I think I'm happier with that now. And I'll measure that from on the top as well. But yeah, that's another way you can measure using a sound hertz measurer. Also, another thing to note, this is basically where you want to be checking or strumming the belt as such, like a guitar string. to check the hertz sound that the belt is making. Right, one more thing with these belts. If you do feel that maybe the belt is too tight and you're not sure, you are always better off having the belts slightly too loose than slightly too tight. Okay, so if there's any doubt, go slightly looser than slightly tighter. Okay, most belts will fail because they have been done up too tight and not too loose. Okay, if you run it too loose, it's not going to jump off the teeth of the cams, these wheels as such. But if you have it too tight, with time the belt will stress and snap, and that 90% apparently of breakages on timing belts are due to the belts being too tight. I'm still thinking this is just a tiny bit too tight, so I'm gonna go just slightly looser, and I think I would be happier with that. So yeah, that is I'm gonna adjust the belt, tighten up the lock-in nut a little, give the engine some rotations, and then I will check the belt again in its complete opposite resting position to where it is at the moment, and then when I'm happy with that, I will then torque up the locking nut. If you have put the belts on incorrectly at this point as well, you'll be able to feel that you've got resistance from the valves hitting the pistons, and you won't create any damage. So this is like a pre-startup check as well. So we'll just continue with that, but everything feels good. Right, so now I want to again check the tension of the belts. So I'm going to put it so we've got the belts in the complete opposite position to where they started, which is about there. So now again, I'm just going to check the tension of the belt. Okay, so now I'm happy with the tension of the belt, and now I'm going to lock off this lock-in nut, which is going to hold the tensioner belt and maintain that tension which we've set on the belt now. I'm pretty happy with this. The tension of the belt, keep feeling like it's too tight, but I've done all the checks. I'm going to go with it. Now I'm going to use this rather swift snazzy snap-on tool that John at work let me borrow. Thank you, mate. So we just switch this on. What we want is 26 Newton meters of torque, so that is set. I've already got the spanner on the tensioner wheel, and now I'm going to place that on there. So now we just hold, it's a bit tricky, hold the spanner, which is going to keep the tensioner in place, and then apply pressure on that nut. .4. That's not bad. Shall I ease it off a bit? I'm going to leave that there. All right, so that was pretty easy. The only downside you've got now is being able to do the same on the other tensioner wheel, and there is basically no access and not enough room to get the lovely torque wrench in there. So I'm going to have to do the same by feel now, by just feeling how much tension's on there, and lock off the locking nut on the upper one. A little bit of a pain, but I'm sure it'll be fine. So let me just do that one a sec. Right, so that is it. Both of those locking nuts are locked off. I'm happy with the torque setting on those two nuts, and now it's time for reassembly. I'm not going to go through the whole reassembly, but all you need to make sure of is that you put the lower engine casing on first, and then these others two top cam covers follow after that. Yeah, spark plugs to go back in, basically put the whole lot back together again, but I'm not going to be able to start it up again until I get that fixed. And I've just ordered one and it should be here in a few days time off of eBay. It was £12–13. Okay, so she's back together. I've replaced the fuel connector. This old one has just gone brittle and broken up, but new one on, and yeah, she's ready for her first start. So fingers crossed, let's hope all goes as planned and I've done the job correctly. Let's see, let's start it up. Ignition on, choke on, it's in neutral, let's go. Okay, so that is that tense moment out of the way. She started, she's ready for use, and I'm pretty confident it is going to be good for the next 2 years. I will check these belts periodically and make sure everything is good and as it should be. I think they say in the service manual to check it every year, but I will be inclined to be checking it again in at least 6 months just to be sure, give myself a bit more peace of mind. But anyway, I hope you've enjoyed today's video. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you on the next one.